Hello and welcome. Tonight, former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele released after meeting the bail conditions granted him today by the Lagos High Court as trial commences in a 26-count charge filed against him by the EFCC. Federal High Court Lagos sentences controversial cross-dresser Idris Olarewaju Okuneye, popularly known as Bobrisky, to 6 months imprisonment without option of fine for abusing the naira. Freedom for 2 students of the Federal University Wukari Taraba State and 3 of their counterparts in the University of Calabar abducted in separate circumstances weeks ago. And the president seeks more collaboration between the executive and legislature to build a greater nation as he receives the vice president, federal lawmakers and state governors at his home in Lagos.
On business news tonight, economic think tank Financial Derivatives Company forecasts Nigeria's headline inflation to reach above 32% in March.
On sports news tonight, Novak Djokovic reaches a record 77th Masters semi-final, defeating Australia's Alex de Minaur in straight sets in Monte Carlo.
From Abuja, the nation's capital, following the recent windstorm which rendered them homeless, residents of Aloshi community in Kiena, local government area of Nasarawa State, appealed to government for help as they count their losses.
And in international news from London, less than 2 months before European voters take part in EU parliamentary elections, Belgium says it is investigating pro-Russian networks that are trying to influence the vote.
We begin with legal matters, and here in Lagos, where former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, was today released from the custody of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC. This came after he met the bail conditions granted him today by the Lagos High Court, Ikeja, in the sum of 50 million naira and 2 sureties in like sum. The EFCC had last week Monday charged Mr. Emefiele before the court on a 26-count charge bordering on alleged abuse of office and irregular allocation of $4.5 billion and 2.8 billion naira, respectively.
Justice Ramon Oshodi, who ruled on former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele's application, admitted him to bail in the sum of 50 million naira with 2 sureties and like sum. And shortly after the court granted him bail, trial started with the EFCC calling its first prosecution witness. The witness, Monday Osazuwa, who is a staff of the Central Bank of Nigeria, told the court how the former CBN governor on different occasions directed him to collect the sum of $3 million cash in tranches. Led in evidence by the prosecution counsel and senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Rotimi, Mr. Osazuwa told the court how he served as a dispatch rider in Zenith Bank, after which he joined the Apex Bank, as well as the many errands he ran for the former CBN governor. He further confirmed to the court that he knew Dummies Oil and Gas Limited while he was in Zenith Bank PLC, and added that the former CBN governor, who was also the MD of the company, always sent him to collect checks from one Mr. Monday. When he was asked where the second defendant resides, he said that Henry Isioma Omoile lived in the residence of the former CBN governor. The witness was also cross-examined by the defendant's counsel, Abdulakim Labi Lawal. He confirmed to the court that he had been working with the defendant since 2002, but he could not say the precise number of years or months he has seen the second defendant. Osazuwa said that he was sure that Omoile had been living in Mr. Emefiele's house for some months. He affirmed that the former CBN governor passed instruction to him through the second defendant and that he had been collecting checks for Dummies Oil and Gas. The court has adjourned the case to April 29, 2024 for continuation of trial and for hearing of some applications requesting a closed session for some of the prosecution's witnesses.
In another legal matter, the controversial cross-dresser Idris Olarewaju Okuneye, popularly known as Bobrisky, has been sentenced to 6 months imprisonment without any option of fine for abusing the Nigerian currency while dancing during social events in Lagos. Justice Abimbola Awogboro of the Federal High Court in Lagos, in her sentence, held that the judgment will serve as a deterrent to others who are fond of abusing and mutilating the naira. Prior to the sentence, the judge asked Bobrisky about his sex, and he quickly replied that he is a man. He was subsequently sentenced to serve his jail term at the Ikoyi Correctional Center. The judge in her ruling held that the jail term would commence from March 24, 2024, the day of his arrest. The court had on April 5th convicted him after he pleaded guilty to a 4-count charge filed against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission before adjourning the case for sentencing. To matters of security, 2 students of the Federal University Wukari, Taraba State, abducted by kidnappers on April 1st at an eatery located outside the school premises, have regained their freedom. The students, identified as Joshua Sadona from the Economics Department and Obiano Elizabeth of the Microbiology Department, were released by their captives late last night, close to Chinkai village in Wukari local government area of the state. The head of Information and Protocol Unit of the university, Mrs. Ashu Agia, told Channels Television that a ransom of 700,000 naira was paid in exchange for their freedom. The kidnappers had earlier requested a ransom fee of 50 million naira. There is also cheery news from the University of Calabar, which has announced that the 3 students of the institution kidnapped about 3 weeks ago have been freed by security forces in the state. Now, the spokesperson of the university, Efyong Ayo, explained in a statement that the students were released unharmed and have been reunited with their parents after being received by the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Florence Obi. Professor Obi praised the security agencies in the state for their collaboration and sustained efforts that led to the release of the students. The Vice-Chancellor also advised students on campus to be cautious about their movements and to always report any sign of suspicious movements around them to the school security personnel for prompt action. In the nation's capital, 385 armed robbery suspects and 238 others suspected to be responsible for kidnapping in the Federal Capital Territory have been arrested by the Nigeria police. While parading the suspects, the Force Public Relations Officer, Mr. Olumuyiwa Adejobi, told journalists that 461 kidnapped victims were recently rescued across the country.
It's a harvest of salts of criminals at the parade of several suspects for various offences by the Nigeria Police Force. The Force Public Relations Officer reels out the statistics of suspects nabbed by the force and the cheery news of the rescue of 461 kidnapped victims across the country.
Within the period under review, we have recorded the arrest of 385 armed robbery suspects, 238 kidnapping suspects, 341 murder/homicide suspects, 87 suspects connected with the unlawful possession of prohibited firearms, 143 rape suspects, 151 suspected cultists, and we have recovered 143 various firearms, 741 ammunition of various calibers. We have recovered 72 stolen vehicles and rescued in total 461 kidnapped victims across the country.
A corporal dismissed from the Nigeria Police Force for kidnapping activities, who is currently on bail, is again in the net, something the Nigeria Police would not tolerate.
In the Nigerian Police Force, we don't condone discipline, we don't condone any act of crime or criminality. He was a corporal involved in one chance robbery, arrested by us. He was subjected to real proceedings. He was dismissed. He was charged to court. Court granted him bail at the time, according to what he's saying, and according to our investigation too. And he still went back to that business. So, gentlemen of the red is not a policeman.
With the arrest of the second most wanted kidnap kingpin in the FCT, Samaila Wakili, who had a bounty placed on him by the Minister of the FCT, The police are reiterating their commitment to make the FCT and the entire country safe for all.
In the light of the persisting insecurity in Nigeria, ranging from insurgent attacks to banditry and kidnappings, some concerned citizens are calling for the adoption of technology to bolster security efforts. The chairman of the Police Service Commission, Mr. Solomon Arase, and Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, Matthew Kuka, made the call at the Innocent Chukwuma's second annual Impact and Legacy Lecture organized by Clean Foundation in Abuja. They stressed the need to incorporate advanced surveillance systems, drones, and data analytics to improve intelligence gathering and response capabilities, while urging the government to facilitate the swift deployment of resources and ensure coordination among security forces.
Two great instruments you talk about when you're talking about internal security management. One is visibility. The other one is dominance of the security space. But no matter the manpower you put together in this country, without you complementing it with technology, it cannot work. Technology has to complement the manpower shortages that we have. So, as a country, it is time we start thinking about, covering our space, with technology.
Okay, well, for me in particular, and I think I speak for millions of Nigerians and those who love this country, the seemingly interminable persistence of insecurity is an indictment on all of us, but most importantly, it's a wake-up call for the government. Look, nothing is possible in this country. You cannot stop the hemorrhage of young people. You cannot build a future. Our democracy remains endangered and impaired unless and until we can very urgently and decisively place a timeline for ending this cruelty, this unacceptable, this intolerable hemorrhaging of human lives and the collective humiliation of all of us. So there are just no two ways about it. Our democracy and our country will have no future unless we can push back these forces of darkness.
Meanwhile, former governor of Zamfara State, Senator Abdulaziz Yari, has emphasized the critical role of education, poverty alleviation, and a shift in attitudes as solutions to the prevailing security challenges in Nigeria. He made these remarks while urging a committee he established to gather data on out-of-school children from 250,000 households in Zamfara State. This initiative aims to provide educational support to the children within the state.
Out-of-school children, there are so many problems. One, data. The entire country, the entire state, the entire local government cannot tell you how many children do we have today, how many died today, how many women born today, how many number, we don't have that data. So by doing this exercise, they are doing household by household. So to be easier for the committee to take the data of a household, how many wives, how many children you have, and then how many of them are in school and how many of them are out of school, and how many schools we need to build, and how many students can we be able to take back into school and sponsor them. It's not only taking them into school, but also to sponsor the education. We know how hard the country is. It's not this today making, but something that come over years. So we have to think ahead of what is before us, so that to ensure that those children are back to school, and also we monitored how this was school up to the graduation. And what we have as a system cannot do this.
In part two, after the break, the president seeks more collaboration between the executive and legislature to build a greater nation as he receives the vice president, federal lawmakers, and state governors at his home in Lagos. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele released after meeting the bail conditions granted him today by the Lagos High Court. A trial commences in a 26-count charge filed against him by the EFCC. Federal High Court Lagos sentences controversial cross-dresser Idris Olariwaju Kunaye, popularly known as Bobrisky, to 6 months imprisonment without option of fine for abusing the naira. Freedom for 2 students of the Federal University Wukari Taraba State and 3 of their counterparts in the University of Calabar abducted in separate circumstances weeks ago. And the president seeks more collaboration between the executive and legislature to build a greater nation as he receives the vice president, federal lawmakers and state governors at his home in Lagos. Members of the National Assembly and state governors have been encouraged to collaborate with the federal government and work with a unity of purpose to achieve national development goals. Vice President Kashim Shettima made the appeal while speaking to a delegation of state governors and the leadership of the National Assembly who were in Lagos to visit the president. Speaking on behalf of President Bola Tinubu, the vice president expressed optimism about Nigeria's economic resurgence and called for collective efforts to propel the country forward.
What binds us together supersedes whatever that divides us. The future of this country, the future of the black man, because 1 out of every 4 black men is a Nigerian. And by 2050, 1 out of every 3 black men will be a Nigerian. So the trajectory of global growth is facing Africa, and Nigeria will make or mar that transition. When people talk about Rwanda, I respect their progress. When people talk of Seychelles, I adore them. When people talk of Botswana, I adore my heart for them. But what is the population of Seychelles? 1.6 million. What is the population of Botswana? 3.4 million. Shomolu or Mushin is more populous than the whole of Botswana. 300, 230 million black people. Some of the most industrious black people on earth. So the future of the black man rests on our shoulders to make or mar. So I'm quite glad by the outpouring of emotion and support. The economy has turned the corner. By the grace of God, in the coming months and weeks, the economy will roar back to glory. Let's unite. Let's rally around our leader and propel and catapult this nation to a greater pedestal.
Meanwhile, the president of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, commended state governors for emulating President Bola Tinubu's leadership style of listening to diverse voices irrespective of political affiliations. On this part, the chairman of the Governors Forum, Governor Abdurrahman Abdurrazak of Kwara State, commended the president's efforts in stabilizing the economy.
Irrespective of political parties, the governors are doing well. So, Your Excellency, nothing to say than to say that this fasting period and this end of fasting and this Eid al-Fitr, Almighty Allah should protect you. Protect your vice president and protect your administration. Almighty Allah should protect all of us. Grant us the wherewithal to make Nigerians happier as we are making them. But if I'm to judge from what I'm seeing here, there's no person here or there's no person of any political division that does not support you. This shows a lot for the future.
Your Excellency, we commend your effort that are gradually turning the ship. We've seen how exchange rate is coming down. The price of food is coming down. A good bumper dry season harvest commencing. And things are getting better. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Excellency would want you to double down on your effort. My colleagues are here to support you. And we also thank you for the support you've been giving the subnational. As we speak to you, trucks are rolling out across the nation, distributing grains to various states.
Following Tuesday's fire disaster at the Dosumu market in Lagos, the federal and state governments say they will work together to avert such incidents in Nigeria's commercial nerve center going forward. The Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, Zubaidu Umar, gave the assurance while on an on-the-spot assessment of the devastation recorded in the inferno.
It's been 4 days and the smoke can still be seen coming out of the rubble from what is left of the collection of buildings housing parts of Dosumu Market in Lagos Island. Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, Zubaidu Umar, in company of the Commissioner for Special Duties, Lagos State, Benga Oyerinde, and the Director General, Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, Olufemi Okeosonyitolu, is here to see the extent of destruction. The periodical fire outbreaks in Lagos, especially in Lagos Island, is a source of concern acknowledged by the visiting government officials who pledged collaboration to check the trend.
Just a couple of weeks ago, NEMA was actually here in Lagos through the zonal office to meet with about 20 market associations on this issue of prevention. And from what I see, the DG Lasema is also right here. They're putting a lot of things in place, and we've agreed that we're going all out to sensitize over and over again on the need for people to know how to demarcate buildings and also separate explosives from these type of buildings.
Oftentimes, majority of these incidents will have occurred before we know it. There must be a whistleblower at all time for us to act appropriately. And that's part of what we are intending to do.
A number of traders who lost their sources of livelihood are calling on the government to come to their aid.
Early in the morning on Tuesday, we were just open our shop, selling our markets, just still fire bomb almost 25 buildings have burned for Dosumu and the Juma Gosai. We please our federal government, post-federal government and our state government to help us. We have lost a lot of markets here.
I'm selling singlets here. All our store, everything is burned. Please, we are pleading to governor to help us.
To avert recurrence, the government highlights what it intends to do, working with the people.
Part of what we have decided to do is for us to develop a fire marshal. There are some team under Safety Commission too, separate from the fire marshal that will be driving the market space now, in terms of having to monitor all the activities within the buildings.
We are not here to share bills. We've put a structure in place. The structure is having a defect or inadequate. We will look at it again. We will perform holistic measure to ensure that it is not only effective, it is efficient.
It is indeed one fire too many, particularly in Lagos Island, and the government promises to help those who have incurred losses, while making sure that steps are taken to avert similar incidents in the future.
So let's head to the nation's capital, and Victoria Lonjon is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Hello, Victoria.
Hello, Ayo. Still with the environment. In the aftermath of another disaster, this time the recent windstorm in Nasarawa State, residents of Aloshi community in Kiena local government area are still counting their losses. The residents who were rendered homeless are appealing for support from the government to rebuild their homes. Meanwhile, the state government is also calling on the National Emergency Management Agency to support it in providing something permanent, while a temporary shelter is being considered for the people. Our correspondent Halima Gayam reports.
The destruction in Aloshi community of Kiana local government area is evident from the entry point. The residents say only about 20% of the houses have not been affected by a recent windstorm. While they anticipate help to repair their roofs, some downpours have been recorded just days after the natural disaster occurred. While the rainfall is desired to cool the current weather conditions, it is a reminder of their predicament, especially those whose houses are either destroyed or the roof pulled off. With the commencement of the rains now, managing or sleeping outside is no longer feasible for many. This was home to one of the largest families in Aloshi community with about 30 inhabitants, now pieces of rubble. They are now homeless and only trying to fix a section of the house, which ordinarily cannot contain all of them. But they have no option for shelter against the rain, else they continue to sleep outside. Hashimu is the head of the family. He pleads for help as he walks to roof his house.
We are begging the government to come to our aid. We have no food left and we are very hungry. Unless the government comes to our aid, we can do nothing.
The state government has taken assessment of the damage and also provided food and essential items for the people. Some of the state lawmakers joined the relief effort through the traditional institutions.
My support, financial support to the people of Kiana is going to the emirate. It's not a political committee.
There is a plan to provide temporary shelter by the state government as it seeks the support of the National Emergency Management Agency in the regard.
We are thinking of starting a disposal kind of shelter, nothing permanent, but where these people can actually go to bed at the moment.
Those who can afford immediate solutions are already building, while a number of them are helpless and putting their hope on the government, support organizations, and spirited individuals. Halima Agayam, Channels Television News.
And still ahead on the news at 10, Financial Derivatives Company forecasts Nigeria's headline inflation to reach above 32% in March. That's some business news. Please join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. There is some relief for residents of Enugu Metropolis as the state government has concluded the reconstruction of the Trans-Ekulu GRA road. The road is one of those flagged up for construction and reconstruction by the state government in October 2023 to ease vehicular movements in the state capital. Meanwhile, the Commissioner for Works, Mr. Gerald Otiji, is asking residents to protect the asset so it can serve its purpose.
This is Trans-Ekulu, one of the roads recently embarked upon by the Enugu state government to ease vehicular movement. The reconstruction work started in October 2023, and 5 months down the line, it wears a new look with drainage systems and road markings.
This is a duplication of what we see in the developed world. So I must tell you that this is a new birth for this road. Even an enemy can testify that this is excellent.
As you can see, it is not only this place that are doing this road. Go to this in Iva Valley, they are working. Go to Ababa, they are working. Go to what is it called? In Ido River, they are working. Go to the phone village there, they are working. They are working in every place.
Tricycle operators, especially those who ride on that side of the metropolis, say the reconstruction has cut down their journey from 60 minutes to barely 10 minutes.
Immediately I turned from the other side, I said, wow, this place has become another thing. This was a very big job because I know when this place was rough, know how we jump and everything, but all we have to do is to pray for him, that God should help him to continue in a good way like this.
Before, hold up there, I had reached like 1 hour before I got this IMT. But now, 5 minutes, I don't reach IMT.
For the State Commissioner of Works, Mr. Gerald Otiji, government has made provision for night driving, not just on the Trans-Ekulu road, but in all its ongoing projects.
The governor has said his priority is to not just to build a beautiful road, but to mark it in such a way that you will know where you are approaching, to safeguard the students, the hospitals, churches, and then lit them up at night so that
those who are driving with full beams will no longer be putting their full beams. They can put the normal beams so you don't blind your opposing approaching vehicle.
He believes that for the road to stand the test of time, residents must play their part in protecting it.
This road is economically important for us to reach out. So this is even another reason why we should protect it. This is why we should protect it. The government is doing all the important things for them for us to have eyes on all our junctions, all our roads.
With the free flow of traffic on this road, users are also advised to drive carefully and be aware of other drivers, reduce their speed limit and not drink and drive.
And staying with infrastructure development, this time in Benue State, where Governor Hyacinth Alea says he's in a hurry to improve the landscape of the state with investments in key infrastructure as part of his administration's urban renewal program. Now, this was conveyed by the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor, Mr. Teso Kula, during an inspection of the Makurdi and Boko flyovers, where concrete floors and retaining wall casting have begun.
Concrete works in the base floor and retaining wall for the Makurdi and Boko flyovers are taking shape. From the ongoing casting to the underground tunnel for water control, the project manager says a lot is being done, particularly on the base floor and retaining wall to beat the rainy season.
We want to reach at least 60% of excavation before rainy season, so we can allow for proper discharge, so we can work freely inside the pit and do our concrete work, our raft, our retaining wall, our cross beam. The
flyover, which consists of a 200-meter underpass to ease traffic on the high level to Urukum along the Makurdi-Boko road, is also being constructed in Boko. The popular Giado Junction in Boko, which became notorious for multiple accidents from articulated trucks killing motorcyclists, is now hosting the second flyover project. Excavation and compacting of the earthwork is ongoing, and residents can barely hold back their excitement.
I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy. Since the governor discovered that this place needs flyover, since then we have stopped experiencing something like accident here in Giado Junction.
In all these, Governor Hyacinth Alea, who speaks through his chief press secretary, says he is in a hurry to develop the state.
The governor's main aim for doing this project is to develop the infrastructure of the state, which before now was in total shambles.
The last 9 months have seen construction works on 16 township roads and the ongoing 35-kilometer rural access road across 18 farming communities by the Alea administration.
To help matters now, the Kaduna state government says it is determined to ensure all state-owned general hospitals across the 23 local government areas are in good condition to deliver services to the residents of the state. Governor Sani told a gathering of all Progressive Congress stakeholders from the 23 councils that although about 32 general hospitals had been abandoned in the last 20 years, his administration has commenced work on their renovation, starting with 2 general hospitals in each of the 3 senatorial districts.
In line with deepening citizens' engagement and carrying everyone along in government policies and programs, Governor Obasani is hosting key members of the All Progressives Congress from across the 23 local government areas of Kaduna State. Present are the Deputy Governor, Dr. Adiza Balarabe, the Speaker of Kaduna State House of Assembly, Yusuf Liman, the State APC Chairman, retired Air Commodore Emmanuel Jekada, party executives, and senior government officials. Governor Obasani welcomes his guests, assuring them of his administration's commitment to tackle insecurity, improve the lives of the poor and vulnerable, and bridge infrastructural deficits, among others. He makes particular reference to the deplorable condition of over 30 general hospitals across Kaduna State.
Most of the patients from Kaduna have to travel to some neighboring states for medical attention. And as a governor, I feel it's unacceptable. And that is the reason why we have decided to remodel, reconstruct, and equip at least 6 out of the 32 general hospitals we have in Kaduna State. And the projects for the remodeling and reconstruction will begin by the grace of God on Monday, that is the next 3 days.
The meeting went into a period of deliberation on a wide range of key developmental issues.
The priority he's given security is something that we should applaud him for. And I believe that with our help, with the help of everybody, Kaduna State will be a safer place to come and invest. And it has started happening.
Other stakeholders expressed satisfaction with the governor's implementation of the Rural Transformation Agenda and measures aimed at improving the lives of the poor and vulnerable households.
We are most happy from the explanation he had given us that, one, the government is after achieving a lot of successes in terms of the healthcare delivery in Kaduna State.
As his administration approaches its first year in office, Governor Obasani says he is committed to sustaining his strategic engagement with stakeholders because of their vital role in driving development and promoting peace in their communities.
And that's it from Abuja. It's now back to you, Ayo, for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Victoria. Still talking development, Governor Chukwuma Soludo of Anambra State has reiterated his commitment towards achieving the desired livable and prosperous homeland through the 5 pillars of his administration's blueprint. Governor Soludo said this during the 2024 Sisters Fellowship International Convention at Nkpo, Idemili North Local Government Area.
This is the 2024 Global Convention of the Sister Fellowship International, holding at their auditorium in Nkpo, Idemili North Local Government Area of Anambra State. Governor Chukwuma Soludo of Anambra State, who is the special guest at this year's event, is given a resounding welcome as he arrives the hall. With the theme, Winning Always, the national president of the SFI, Reverend Nches Iredu, comments on the slogan of the Anambra State government, describing it as divinely inspired.
I thank God for him. Whenever you see his name, you will see what statements. It's not a statement, I think it's a word. Solution. Solution. That solution is not, and he said solution is here. That thing is not just one of those write-ups. Solution is here indeed.
Next, Reverend Iredu extols the governor for his disposition towards the poor and vulnerable persons in the state, as well as his achievements within 2 years in office.
He is bringing somebody into the state to cleanse him. To cleanse the state. As he was telling me that, you people, if you have entered this state, or you are a member, you live in this state, you will discover that this state was left in a mess.
Addressing the gathering, Governor Soludo commends the Sisters Fellowship International and pledged that the state government will partner them in the establishment of a livable and prosperous homeland.
We've already been named by one of the national newspapers as the best governor in Nigeria in terms of infrastructure development. We are doing over 400 kilometers of road. We already completed about 447 at an average of at least 10 kilometers every month. We're not going to borrow. We will only borrow and deploy to projects that will have capacity to generate returns to payment.
The governor calls for synergy between his government and the fellowship towards intensifying developments across the state and the world at large, urging the congregation not to relent in living lives dedicated to public good and service.
Time now for some business news with Will Ibong.
Thank you, Ayotunde. Let's get down to business. Now, economic think tank Financial Derivatives Company, FDC, has forecast Nigeria's headline inflation to rise at a much slower pace to 32.15% in March from 31.7% in February. Now, this projection comes as the National Bureau of Statistics prepares to release March inflation data on Monday, April the 15th. FDC attributes the uptick to heightened consumer demand during Easter and Ramadan, alongside supply shortages due to the planting season. Also, food inflation is expected to rise marginally to 38.33%, with core inflation predicted to increase to 25.27%. Looking ahead, FDC believes inflation may have reached a point of inflection as short-term inflation expectations suggest a temporary rise in prices, followed by a potential decline in the second half of the year. Meanwhile, global investment banking company Goldman Sachs projects continued gains for Nigeria's naira, with the currency predicted to trade below 1,000 naira to a dollar in the coming months. Currently leading as the world's top-performing currency this month, Goldman Sachs says the naira's impressive 12% surge against the dollar in April, fueled by capital inflows and interest rate hikes, marks a substantial recovery from previous devaluations. These measures, alongside President Bola Tinubu's economic reforms, are restoring confidence in the currency. However, the U.S. lender still maintains its 12-month forecast for the naira as 1,200 per dollar, owing to uncertainty around the ability of the authorities to maintain the reform tempo. It adds that the upcoming Monetary Policy Committee meeting in May will provide critical insights into Nigeria's economic trajectory and the effectiveness of its reform efforts. Now, in response to concerns over a shortfall in Nigeria's oil production, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Senator Akeredolu, assures measures are underway to restore and increase the country's oil production. The minister cites pipeline issues and maintenance as causes for the shortfall, but assures swift action for restoration as production is expected to return to previous levels soon. Anticipating a return to 1.7 million barrels per day, Mr. Lokobiri emphasizes policy changes to maximize revenue for infrastructure, while calling for unity to sustain Nigeria's vital oil sector amid challenges. Now, traders resumed the holiday shortened week with profit-taking, not holding back on the sell-offs, as the market lost about 638 billion naira in total this week. Dominic Iwiwu tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. I'm Dominic Iwiwu. The domestic stock market resumed from the three-day Muslim Eid holiday declared by the federal government with a hangover of profit-taking, which we saw on the first trading day of the week. Let's take a look at the primary indicators. The All Share Index closed at 102,314 points and declined by 0.71%, with a market capitalization of 57.864 trillion naira. The losses were largely attributed to the drop in the share price of high-value stocks across the banking sector, which closed at 4.59%, the consumer goods sector, which closed at 1.07%, and the oil and gas sector, which was unchanged earlier in the week, closing at 0.28%. Meanwhile, Dangote was the market mover, closing at 686 naira 70 kobo, losing 68 naira 60 kobo. The market closed bearish.
Thank you. And that's it on Business News. It's back to you, Ayotunde, for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Will. Our news just in reports that our correspondent in River State, Joshua Rogers, has now been freed. Again, our correspondent Joshua Rogers in River State has been freed. United States President Joe Biden says he expects Iran to attack Israel sooner rather than later. Well, this comes as fears grow over possible Iranian retaliation after an airstrike that killed its top commanders early this month. Well, here's Simon Pusey with other international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Less than 2 months before European voters in 27 countries take part in EU Parliament elections, Belgium says it is investigating pro-Russian networks that are trying to influence the vote. Moscow's aim was to bring more pro-Russian candidates into the European Parliament, said Prime Minister Alexander De Croo. The Czech government said recently that it had broken up a pro-Kremlin network. Intelligence agencies both in Prague and Poland said the Voice of Europe news website had been funded by Moscow to spread propaganda and funnel cash to sympathetic European politicians. It comes days after long-time Latvian MEP Tatiana Zdanoka was sanctioned and fined after she was accused of having spied for Russia.
Whether this is the AfD in Germany or the Rassemblement National in France, the Confederacja in Poland or others, the names may be different, but their goal is the same. They are trampling on our values and they want to destroy our Europe, and we will never, ever let this happen.
The FBI is concerned about the possibility of an organized attack in the United States, similar to the one that killed scores of people at a Russian concert hall last month. The March the 22nd attack on a concert hall in a Moscow suburb killed at least 144 people, the deadliest in Russia in 20 years. A branch of the Islamic State militant group claimed responsibility, but Russian President Vladimir Putin, without citing evidence, has sought to blame Ukraine. US officials have been worried about the possibility of an attack carried out by an individual or small group, inspired by the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza.
As I look back over my career in law enforcement, I would be hard-pressed to think of a time where so many threats to our public safety and national security were so elevated all at once.
Deaths caused by the mosquito-borne dengue disease have more than tripled in Peru so far this year. That's according to data from the South American nation's government, which is redoubling efforts to contain an epidemic that has hit poor areas the hardest. The government of President Dina Boluarte this week said it had approved an emergency decree allowing extraordinary economic measures to bolster the plan to counter the outbreak, which experts say is exacerbated by climate change. Mild symptoms include nausea, rashes and body pains, while a rarer severe form, more threatening for infants and pregnant women, can cause internal bleeding and is potentially fatal. Peru's health ministry said there were 117 registered deaths from dengue so far this year, compared with 33 in the same period of 2023. Floods in the Russian city of Orenburg have raised water levels to 2 meters above critical, leaving just the roofs of some houses showing. The city's mayor urged many residents to leave home. Levels in Orenburg are likely to peak on Friday, but floods are expected to spread through neighboring regions over the coming days and weeks. Kazakhstan has also been badly affected, with 100,000 people evacuated from their homes in the last week. The flooding is being described as the worst to hit the region in 80 years. 3 fishermen stranded on a remote Pacific island for more than a week have been rescued after spelling out the word help in the sand using giant palm fronds. A crew from the US Coast Guard cutter Oliver Henry plucked the men in their 40s from part of the Federated States of Micronesia after their message was spotted from the air. The trio had been missing since failing to return from an Easter Sunday fishing expedition aboard their 20-foot skiff and survived by eating coconuts. And a new dog robot is being trained to walk on the moon. Called Spirit, the robot is part of the Legged Autonomous Surface Science in Analog Environments project. The idea is to teach Spirit how to cope with challenging terrain in the same way humans do. The group has a 2-year, $2 million grant to help NASA put teams of robots working together on the surface of the moon.
Moving forward to missions that are going to occur on our moon, we're going to have humans and robots really for the first time on planetary missions working side by side. And so what the Lassie project is doing is really looking forward to that time and considering how should humans and robots collaborate for exploration of planets, particularly where should they go to collect data.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Nigeria Football Federation has appointed former Under-17 World Cup winner Manu Garba as head coach of the national Under-17 team, the Golden Eaglet. He led Nigeria to a fourth World Cup title at the 2013 Under-17 World Cup in the United Arab Emirates in 2013. His immediate task will be to prepare the Golden Eaglets for next month's WAFU B Under-17 Championship taking place in Ghana. And Mikel Arteta will put his admiration for the unbelievable Unai Emery on hold this weekend as the Arsenal manager aims for a crucial win against Aston Villa. Arteta has been impressed by the impact Emery has made on Villa since his return to the Premier League after a disappointing spell in charge of Arsenal. While Arteta respects the work done by his fellow Spaniard, he can't afford to lay out the welcome mat when Villa visit North London on Sunday. And meanwhile, informed Yannick Sinner racked up his 25th victory of the year with a grueling 6-4, 6-7, 6-3 victory over 2023 runner-up Holger Rune. Australian Open champion and world #2 Sinner faces two-time Monte Carlo winner Stefanos Tsitsipas in Saturday's semi-finals. And that sports is back to you, Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Chris. Just before we go, we would like to inform you that our correspondent Joshua Rogers, abducted in Port Harcourt in Rivers State last night, has finally been freed. We would definitely like to thank our viewers and indeed all those concerned for their show of support in the incident or over the incident. Once again, our correspondent Joshua Rogers, who was abducted in Port Harcourt last night, has finally been freed. And the main news again. The former CBN governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, was today released after meeting the bail conditions granted him by the Lagos High Court as trial commences in a 26-count charge filed against him by the EFCC. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Do have a great weekend.